Daniel opened the envelope with trembling hands, the paper cutting into his skin as if punishing him one last time. His breath caught, and he whispered, "Could it really be true this time?" The letter confirmed what he had prayed for. His record cleared after 7 years of being marked. The weight of it felt heavier than any sentence he had served, because this time freedom came dressed as suspicion. His daughter Emily once asked, "Daddy, when will people stop looking at us like that?" That memory burned hotter than shame, more than walls of concrete ever did. He stared at the letter, scuffed edges of his old diploma tucked beneath it, a reminder of what he had lost. He had carried that folded paper in his wallet, ink almost erased, as proof that he had been more once. Outside the window, the world went on, buses groaning, people shouting, doors slamming. Daniel whispered again, "Honest is the only way now, even if it breaks me." He folded the letter back, slower than before, as if sealing not just a chance but a vow. Daniel whispered, "They won't believe me, but I have to prove it." He stepped outside, the cold air rushing into his lungs like punishment. His neighbor Mrs. Carter nodded stiffly, not smiling, her judgment carried in silence. He remembered when she once brought food during his worst days, but now her eyes only scanned for weakness. He clenched the letter inside his jacket, hearing the city breathe around him, traffic roaring, horns snapping, footsteps fast. The world moved on without pause, but he felt each second drag heavier. He muttered, "No shortcuts, no lies, not this time." His resolve burned, yet doubt clawed inside like an old enemy. Daniel walked past the corner store where Jamal leaned against the wall, offering his familiar smirk. Jamal said, "Easy money, brother. You don't need their approval." Daniel's jaw tightened. He thought of Emily's eyes again, and of the word exonerated. He shook his head, muttering, "Not today, Jamal." The air felt heavy, his heart louder than the traffic. He knew temptation wore the face of friendship, but it smelled like the old cage. He forced his steps forward, each one an argument with himself. Daniel reached the bus stop, clutching coins in his palm, his knuckles pale. A bus screeched away before he could reach it, leaving only exhaust smoke and laughter from teenagers nearby. He muttered, "Another test." He sat on the bench, chest tight, hearing his inner voice whisper, "You'll never outrun the past." He closed his eyes and whispered, "I'll fight you every step." The sound of another bus rumbling closer was both hope and warning. Daniel finally boarded the next bus, chest still tight. He slid into the last seat, gripping the letter. A mother with a small child glanced at him and then away quickly, as if memory warned her. He whispered, "One step at a time." The bus rattled forward, city streets blurring past windows, the rhythm of progress and suspicion side by side. He looked at his reflection in the glass, face lined with years, eyes carrying storms. He told himself this time, "I choose honesty, no matter the cost." Daniel walked into the community center, the walls lined with peeling posters of job fairs and addiction recovery meetings. He thought, "This is where I prove I'm more than my past." The room smelled of disinfectant and worn-out hope. A counselor named Robert looked up, eyes scanning him as if reading a record stamped across his skin. Robert said, "Daniel, you've been here before. Why is this time different?" Daniel swallowed hard, answering, "Because I can't let Emily grow up thinking her father gave up again." Robert's gaze softened, but his words stayed sharp. "Words are easy. I'll only believe patterns." Daniel nodded, though his chest burned. The weight of honesty pressed heavier than the letter he carried. He muttered, "I'll build it brick by brick." In that moment, the walls seemed taller, but his resolve stood taller still. Daniel sat in the counselor's office, where walls carried photos of past graduates smiling with certificates. He stared at them, thinking, "They made it. Why can't I?" Robert said, "You'll attend weekly check-ins and show proof of work applications. No excuses." Daniel replied, "I'll do it." Robert leaned forward, adding, "If you slip even once, the trust collapses. Emily doesn't deserve another broken promise." The name cut deeper than rules. Daniel clenched his jaw, whispering, "She's the reason I'm still standing." Robert paused, then nodded slowly. For the first time, Daniel felt the faintest crack of light break through. Later that evening, Daniel sat on Emily's porch, the wooden boards creaking beneath his weight. Emily opened the door slowly, her cautious eyes widening when she saw him. Emily said, "You're really here this time?" Daniel nodded, voice low. "I'm not going anywhere." She hesitated, clutching a school book like a shield. Daniel whispered, "I want the right to show up again." Emily's silence felt heavier than words. "Finally," she said, "we'll see." Her small voice carried the weight of years of broken moments. Daniel felt both shattered and rebuilt in that single breath. Inside Emily's small living room, the air smelled of old books and lavender candles. Emily's mother, Claire, stood at the sink, arms folded, back stiff. Claire said, "Daniel, promises don't rebuild homes, proof does." Daniel lowered his gaze, answering, "I know. This time I'll prove it with every day." Claire glanced at Emily, her guarded face softening just slightly. She whispered, "For her sake, not yours." Daniel's chest tightened, but he nodded. He felt the past pressing down like bricks, but Emily's gaze gave him a reason to stand taller. Later, walking home beneath flickering streetlights, Daniel whispered to himself, "Every step forward is a fight with the ghost behind me." His inner voice mocked, "You'll slip, you always do." He clenched the folded letter in his pocket tighter. A stray dog crossed the road, ribs showing, searching for scraps. Daniel muttered, "I know that hunger." He stopped under a streetlight, looking at his shadow stretching long across the pavement. He whispered, "I'll feed the right wolf this time." The night held no answer, only the sound of distant sirens reminding him of what awaited if he failed. Daniel walked into the warehouse office for his interview, his palms damp even though the room was cold. Mr. Thompson flipped through his application with a slow rhythm that felt like judgment with every turn of the page. He finally said, "We run background checks, and they decide more than words ever could." Daniel's chest tightened, a memory of steel doors slamming echoing in his head. Still, he nodded, his voice steady. "I know. I'm here to earn trust, not to beg for it." Thompson leaned back, eyes sharp as knives, tapping his pen against the desk. "You'll need 3 references, proof of stability, and punctuality without failure. That's the price." Daniel swallowed hard, thinking of Robert and Claire, knowing their faith would cost him honesty sharper than a blade. His throat burned as he whispered, "I'll bring them. I'll prove it." Thompson said nothing more, just folded the file closed, and the silence was heavier than rejection. Daniel left the office with slow steps, muttering under his breath, "One door at a time. And if it closes, I'll knock again until I can't breathe." Daniel stepped out into the cold air, relief fleeting before shadows closed in again. At the bus stop, Jamal appeared as if summoned by weakness, leaning with casual arrogance against the fence. Jamal smirked, voice slick as oil, "Still chasing scraps while I eat. Come with me, quick money, no rules." Daniel clenched his jaw, pulse quickening, the temptation tasting familiar and dangerous. He said through gritted teeth, "Not this time, Jamal. I've lost too much already." Jamal laughed low, stepping closer. "The system doesn't forgive you. You think this letter makes you clean? They'll never forget. Ride with me or crawl under them." Daniel's fists trembled, but his voice steadied. "Shortcuts kill second chances. Yours is a leash in disguise." Jamal's grin faltered, replaced with anger behind narrowed eyes. He hissed, "Then starve with your pride, brother." Daniel turned sharply, each step forward burning like fire, but feeling freer than chains. He whispered to himself, "Better hungry than caged. Better scarred than false." The wind stung his face, but his back remained straight as he walked away. Later that evening, Daniel sat in Robert's cluttered office, the air heavy with dust and truth. He told him about the interview, the tests, the weight of proof, demanded like ransom. Robert leaned forward, adjusting his glasses, eyes unblinking. "Consistency builds trust," he said firmly. "You can't talk your way through this. Humility is the only road." Daniel lowered his head, pride scraping his throat raw. "I'll do it," he muttered, though his voice cracked under the promise. Robert's tone sharpened. Don't confuse anger with strength. Show them with days, not words. Break the pattern once, and I walk away. Emily deserves better than another collapse. Daniel's breath caught, chest aching at the sound of her name. He whispered, I'll stand even if my legs shake, even if I fall on my face every day. Robert's gaze softened briefly, and he gave a small nod, faint as a crack of light in a storm. Then prove it, he said. For the first time, Daniel felt that faith was possible, but only if sweat replaced excuses. That night, Daniel sat at his kitchen table, surrounded by bills that seemed to multiply like enemies on the battlefield of his life. The lamp buzzed faintly, light casting harsh shadows across overdue notices. His inner voice whispered, venomous and familiar, you'll drown again, Daniel. You always do. He pressed his palms against his face, muttering through clenched teeth, not this time, not again. The walls felt close, suffocating, as if years of mistakes pressed in to choke him. He unfolded the exoneration letter once more, its word exonerated glowing, faintly like fragile fire. He whispered, this isn't just paper, it's the chance I bled for. His hands trembled, not from weakness but from carrying weight too long. Outside, neighbors' laughter drifted through the hallway, sharp reminders of suspicion still alive. He clenched his fists, knuckles white, whispering again, not this time, not again. Even if the world waits for me to fail, I'll stand until standing breaks me. The next morning, Daniel stood outside Emily's school, clutching the letter in his pocket like armor. Parents nearby whispered, their eyes sharp, their judgments sharper. He felt their suspicion like chains clinking in the air. Emily spotted him across the gate, her small face unreadable, eyes guarded but searching. She approached slowly, voice soft, yet heavy with history. Why are you here? Daniel's chest rose with uneven breath as he answered, to show I won't run anymore, not from you, not from the truth. She looked down, clutching her backpack tighter, as a teacher walked past with a frown directed at Daniel. The world seemed to hold its breath. Emily finally whispered, if you stay right. Her voice, though young, carried the weight of judgment sharper than any court. Daniel nodded, whispering back, I will. His hands shook, but he did not retreat. That was her test, her line in the sand, and he knew he had no room left to fail. Daniel met Robert again in the office, tension thick in the air. Robert placed a file on the desk and said, you should see this. Inside were old police reports, Daniel thought forgotten. His eyes widened as Robert explained, it wasn't you they caught. Evidence shows someone else set you up. Daniel's breath caught. His past had not been his alone. It was Jamal's fingerprints on the report. His hands shook, whispering, all those years, and it wasn't me? Robert nodded grimly. Truth doesn't erase the scars, but it changes the story. Daniel closed his eyes, muttering, then I've carried his shadow for nothing. Daniel stormed out of the building, the cold wind biting his face. His mind echoed with Robert's words. Jamal had let him rot while living free. On the corner, Jamal leaned casually against a wall, grin as sharp as glass. Daniel stepped close, voice trembling with rage. It was you. Jamal smirked, replying, truth don't change the years you lost. Might as well blame the mirror. Daniel's fists clenched, but he whispered, no more shortcuts, no more lies, not from you. Jamal laughed, but Daniel's silence held more power than threats. Later that night, Daniel sat with Claire in her kitchen. Her face was pale as he explained, it wasn't me all along. Jamal set me up. Claire's eyes narrowed, voice sharp, you expect me to just believe that now? Daniel's chest ached as he whispered, I'm not asking for belief, I'm asking for time to prove it. Emily stood in the doorway, her voice small, if that's true, then you've been punished for nothing. Daniel turned, tears burning, I stayed alive for you, even when it wasn't fair. Claire looked away, muttering, truth changes nothing unless you live it. Robert arranged a meeting with a mediator named Pastor Lewis. In the quiet hall of a church basement, Daniel sat across from Jamal. Pastor Lewis said, the truth is here. Will you own it? Jamal shrugged, voice cool, Truth's just a story people believe. Daniel's hands gripped the table as he whispered, "Not anymore. I won't carry your story." Pastor Lewis leaned in, voice firm. "Honesty will cost both of you. But lies cost everyone." Jamal's smirk faltered, and Daniel felt power shift for the first time in years. That night, Daniel walked alone under the streetlights, words replaying like a storm. His heart was torn. He was innocent, but years lost would never return. He whispered, "Earning my chance will mean living truth louder than the lie." His shadow stretched long on cracked pavement, and he thought of Emily's cautious eyes. He muttered, "I'll pay whatever it costs, even if it means losing what's left of me." The night carried no answer, only the sound of his footsteps echoing like a vow. Daniel stood before the hiring board at the warehouse, the weight of every year pressing on his shoulders. Mr. Thompson said, "We've heard conflicting stories. Why should we trust you?" Daniel inhaled deeply, pulling the exoneration letter from his jacket. His voice cracked, but did not falter. "Because I lived the punishment for a crime I didn't commit. I'm here because I refuse to lie, even if it costs me everything." The room was silent. One board member whispered, "That's a risk for us." Daniel straightened, voice steady. "Then let me prove truth is worth risk." His hands trembled, but he did not look away. Outside, Jamal waited near the parking lot, his smirk sharp as a blade. He said, "You think paper makes you honest? They'll never see you as clean." Daniel's chest burned, but he whispered, "I'm not fighting for them. I'm fighting for Emily." Jamal stepped closer, hissing, "Then choose. Keep starving on their leash or take freedom my way." Daniel clenched his fists, trembling but unshaken. He answered, "Your freedom smells like chains. I won't wear it again." Jamal sneered, but his eyes betrayed anger. Daniel turned, walking away without looking back, each step a declaration louder than words. At Emily's school play that evening, Daniel slipped quietly into the back row. The auditorium was warm, filled with parents' chatter. When Emily stepped on stage, her eyes scanned the crowd until they landed on him. She hesitated, then continued her lines, voice trembling but strong. Daniel whispered to himself, "She saw me. She let me stay." His heart hammered louder than applause. For the first time, he felt he had chosen presence over pride. The play ended, and she glanced again, cautious but not closing the door. It was enough. After the play, Claire met him in the hallway, arms folded. She said, "You came. You stayed quiet." Daniel nodded. "I only wanted to show her I wouldn't leave." Claire's eyes softened briefly, but stayed guarded. She whispered, "If you break her again, it's over. No excuses." Daniel's voice cracked, "I know. That's why I'll never let it happen again." Emily walked up, clutching her backpack, eyes flicking between them. She said, "You can come tomorrow, if you want." Daniel's chest filled with both fear and gratitude. He whispered, "I'll be there." That night, Daniel walked alone across the bridge, city lights reflecting in the dark river below. His mind echoed with every voice, Robert's, Claire's, Emily's, even Jamal's. He whispered, "I chose truth. Now I live it." His inner voice hissed, "You'll fall again." But Daniel's reply was steady, "Then I'll rise again, because honesty doesn't end when I stumble." He stopped at the railing, gripping it tight, looking out at the horizon. He muttered, "The cost is mine, the chance is hers." The wind whipped against him, but he stood taller than the storm. The warehouse called Daniel back. Mr. Thompson said, "We'll give you a trial week. Show up on time, no excuses." Daniel nodded, heart pounding. He whispered, "I won't waste this." His hands shook as he signed the paperwork, feeling each stroke as if it carved a new life. Other workers glanced at him, some whispering, others staring with suspicion. He thought of Emily's face, and that steadied him. Robert's words echoed, "Patterns prove truth." Daniel muttered, "Then I'll make my days the proof." The pen clicked shut, and for the first time in years, he felt employed, not judged. On his first day, Daniel carried heavy boxes across the warehouse floor. Sweat soaked through his shirt as machines roared around him. Another worker muttered, "That's the ex-con." Daniel felt the words sting, but he kept walking, spine straight. He whispered, "I'll carry more than this weight." His arms trembled, but he did not slow. A supervisor passed by, raising an eyebrow at his effort, but saying nothing. Each step became a vow, each box a stone laid on the path of proof. Daniel muttered, "This is the cost, and I'll pay it with sweat." That evening, Daniel knocked on Claire's door. She opened it with crossed arms but softer eyes than before. Daniel said, "I started today. A week on trial." Claire's voice was cautious. "A week isn't forever." Daniel nodded. "But it's a start." Emily stepped forward, backpack still on. She asked quietly, "Did you make it through the first day?" Daniel smiled faintly. "Yes, and I'll make it through tomorrow too." Claire sighed, but let the door open wider, a gesture small but heavy with meaning. Daniel stepped inside, feeling warmth where once only walls stood. Days passed, each one harder than the last. Daniel woke before dawn, caught buses, and worked until his muscles screamed. At night, he studied job safety manuals by a dim lamp. He whispered, "One brick at a time." Neighbors no longer looked through him, but began nodding faintly as he passed. Mrs. Carter said one morning, "You're still at it, Daniel." He nodded, still standing. Her lips pressed tight, but she offered a loaf of bread, silent acknowledgement that suspicion was softening. For Daniel, it was more than food. It was proof that walls could crack when pressed long enough. At the end of the week, Mr. Thompson called Daniel into his office. Silence filled the room as papers shuffled. Thompson said finally, "You showed up. You worked hard. You passed." Daniel exhaled, the weight leaving his chest in a rush. He whispered, "Thank you." Thompson raised a hand. "Don't thank me yet. Keep proving it." Daniel nodded. "I will." Walking out, his hands trembled not from fear but from victory. Emily's voice echoed in his mind. "If you stay, stay right." He whispered, "I stayed." For the first time, the future looked like something he could touch. Daniel walked through the warehouse floor with his first paycheck in his pocket. The paper felt heavier than any coin he'd held. A co-worker named Louis said, "Guess you're sticking, huh?" Daniel nodded, smiling faintly. "I'm not leaving this time." The machines roared, but Daniel's steps felt lighter. He thought of the nights of hunger, the whispers of shame, the folded receipt he had carried like a wound. He whispered to himself, "This is the proof." His hands, once marked by chains, now bore calluses of honest work. The warehouse didn't cheer, but silence itself felt like acceptance. That evening, Daniel stood outside Claire's house. Emily opened the door, her eyes wide when she saw him holding groceries. She asked softly, "You bought food?" Daniel smiled. "With my own paycheck." Claire appeared behind her, arms folded but lips trembling. Daniel whispered, "This time I'm not just showing up. I'm bringing something home." Emily reached out, taking the bag, her voice light. "Then stay for dinner." Claire said nothing, but her silence was softer than rejection. Daniel stepped in, the threshold crossed with more weight than years of walls. At the dinner table, Emily laughed at something small, and the sound struck Daniel harder than any sentence. He whispered, "I thought I'd never hear that again." Claire glanced at him, voice measured. "Keep the pattern, Daniel. Don't break it." He nodded, swallowing hard. "I won't." The table was simple: bread, stew, a borrowed candle, but it felt like a feast of forgiveness. Daniel looked at Emily's smile and thought, "This is what I fought for." The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of trust, fragile but alive. Later that night, Daniel walked alone back to his apartment. The city was quiet, the river reflecting streetlights like fractured stars. His inner voice whispered, "You'll slip again." Daniel stopped on the bridge, exhaling into the cold air. He whispered back, "If I fall, I'll rise honest." His reflection in the water looked older, scarred, but steadier. He pressed a hand to the railing, muttering, "Second chances aren't free. I've paid with every breath, and I'll keep paying." The silence that followed wasn't cruel. It was respect earned by survival. The next morning, Daniel stood outside the warehouse as the sun broke through clouds. He whispered, "I did the time, but I won't do the lie." His voice was steady, carved from every scar. Workers passed by, some nodding faintly, others ignoring him. Daniel smiled, not seeking applause, only proof he was still here. Emily's words echoed, "If you stay, stay right." He whispered again, "I stayed right." The light touched his face, harsh but honest like his truth. For the first time, Daniel felt not just free but whole.